If you're looking to hook into your personal best redfish this fall, this video is going to help point you in the right direction. So we're going to go over the best baits, gear, and types of areas that are ideal for finding these bigger redfish. Now, first thing I want to really emphasize, especially with the fall being spawning season, it's very important to make sure you handle these fish with care, as they are the primary breeding stock for your area in order to maintain a healthy redfish population. So now, first let's talk about bait. These fish can be caught on artificial lures, but cut bait tends to be the ticket for these bigger fish. These fish are old and wise, and they got big for a reason, so it can be a challenge at times to get them to strike artificial. Now, if you do want to give artificials a shot targeting these fish, I would highly recommend going with 4 to 5 inch paddle tails, such as our 4-inch or 5-inch mulligan, and also shrimp imitations. The larger shrimp imitations do well, such as our Power Prawn USA Original. So as far as baits go, fresh cut mullet, ladyfish, and or blue crab are some of the best types of baits to use for these fish, and the more fresh these baits are, the better. Now, when it comes to gear, I prefer at least a 7'6" medium heavy power rod, so it has a good strong backbone to fight these bigger fish. 3,000 size spinning reel would be the minimum size I would go. Again, these fish are big, they will pull a lot of drag, and when it comes to the braid, 20-pound braid is the minimum that I would go with, and 25 to 30-pound leader. Now, when we're rigging up these baits that we mentioned, it will depend on the type of area you're fishing, how deep you're fishing, how shallow you're fishing. If you're fishing shallow in 4 feet or less, I prefer to free line the bait using 25-pound leader and a 5/0 to a 6/0 circle hook. You really want to match that size of the hook to the size of the bait you're using, and typically you want to go with a pretty big piece of cut bait. These fish have big mouths, and if you're using a bigger piece of bait, that will help keep those catfish and other smaller fish or nuisance fish from getting hooked. No weight is needed, as the weight of the bait itself is enough for these depths. Now, when you're fishing deeper, let's say 4 feet of water or more, I'll use somewhat of a modified fish finder rig, and what this is I actually have the egg sinker on the leader. I have my leader attached to my main line using a small swivel, and then I have the egg sinker on that leader between the swivel and the hook, and the weight will vary again depending on depth and the strength of the current. And then I have a circle hook on the end, again a 5/0 or 6/0 circle hook depending on the size of your bait. And the weight of the egg sinker will vary. If I'm fishing really deep, 10 feet or more, and there's strong current, I'll have as heavy as a 5-ounce egg sinker depending on how deep and how strong the current is. And then if it's pretty, light current and it's fairly shallow in that 4 to 5 foot range, I'll have something as light as a 1/4 ounce. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about where to find these fish. Now, from September through November, this is pretty much prime spawning time, and these fish can be found schooled up near the edges of open flats and also deeper channels leading to the oceans, whether it be inlets, passes, or bridges close to those inlets with deeper water. All of which are ideal for big spawning reds, since the currents and higher water salinity content near those oceans can actually help disperse their eggs into the estuaries. Now, aside from the gear, baits, and types of areas, the most important piece of this puzzle is knowing when to hit the water and how to implement the proper tactics to catch these fish. So if you need help with that, I highly recommend checking out our Salt Strong membership, where we'll guarantee you'll start catching more inshore fish consistently. So if you're interested in that, head over to saltstrong.com. Otherwise, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them down below.